Thanks for joining us. This is Ellen McLain. I'm Mrs. Ellen McLain.
We're the Gamla Geeks.
We're the Gamla Geeks. We've decided that's what we are. Yes. We went over to Gamla Linköping this morning and we had a great time, but it occurred to us that we are the Gamla Geeks. Yes. So welcome to Old Geek. So, a little about us. Ellen and I met in a little town in the Netherlands, Arnhem. She was playing a role in a Broadway show, and I was playing guitar and banjo in the orchestra. And that's where we met, and we had our first date in Amsterdam. And
at an Italian restaurant.
At an Italian restaurant in Amsterdam, that's right. And that's where we met, and that was back in 1984, and we got married in...
Before you were born.
That's right. We got married in 1986, and here it is, 2017, and we're still putting along pretty good. We moved out to Seattle, which is a town on the west coast of the United States, just south of Canada, and a nice little town. It's where Microsoft started. It's where Starbucks started.
It's where Valve started.
And Valve is headquartered there. Valve actually was started by a guy who retired from Microsoft, so it's all kind of tied together.
And it's where Boeing started in the teens of the 20th century.
Making airplanes out there. And so we really have enjoyed it out there. When we moved out there in '89, I right away got a voice demo. And now, voice demo, when I say that, do you know what I'm talking about? It's so when you want to be a voice actor, you make a demo tape, which basically demonstrates what you can do. It's kind of like making a sample. You record your voice saying various things, Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, a book about science, different kinds of things that you might get hired to do. And I made one of those when I first got out there, and I got an agent, and I started doing weird little commercials and things for Microsoft and things for Boeing and stuff like that. And about 1995, Sierra Online moved up there, and Humongous and a couple of other early computer game manufacturers, and they started sending out auditions, and my agent got them, and they sent them to me. And back in those days, all of the actors in town would have to go down to a recording studio just to audition. And you'd have to have an appointment, and it'd basically take up your whole day. And the nice part about that is that you got to know all the other voice actors in town because they were all there auditioning at the same time. And they would put it all on this great big piece of magnetic tape, great big spool of magnetic tape, and they would have to mail that off to the client, and that'd take a couple of weeks. And then they'd have to make their decision, so you wouldn't hear back for maybe a month. And then the internet started, and all that changed. But so I was doing that kind of work, and I got my first game. I think my first game was Spy Fox Breakfast Cereal. Did you guys play that when you were kids? No. One person, right. And I did a thing called Betrayal at Antara, and I started getting this kind of work. I did a game called Championship Bass Fishing, which teaches you how to fish for bass. And I did a thing called SWAT 2. I don't know if you guys know what SWAT teams are. It's, some kind of special police force thing. And then I started doing No One Lives Forever, and the No One Lives Forever 1 and 2, where I was the spy master. And I just started getting more and more games. And I kept telling Ellen that she should get her own voice demo. And what did you say?
I said, they won't use my voice. They always use men. I don't have the right type of voice. I won't get any work. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm too busy.
Right. And so that happened for years and years and years, like 8 years.
Until 2002.
Right. And where we finally got to a time where you weren't too busy.
Yes, it was actually a lull in my career.
That's right.
As we say in the biz.
And so I finally convinced her to make a voice demo, and so she started working with my agent as well. And funny thing, Ellen was always afraid of flying. She always got very, very nervous when she was on an airplane, and it really bothered her. She never let it keep her from flying, but it made her really, really scared and really upset. And she finally went to a counselor, and their counselor told her, well, it's a control issue. You get afraid on the airplane because you're not in control of the airplane, and so the only thing you can do to keep the airplane in the air is to be afraid. You use your anxiety to keep the plane in the air.
My anxiety kept the plane in the air.
That's right, that's right. And which was actually great background work for GLaDOS, but it was interesting. So and it really helped her. She said, okay, I'm anxious because I'm using my anxiety to keep the plane in the air. Well, when she finally got a voice demo, her very first voiceover gig.
Well, one of my first, yes, was for the Honeywell Corporation for the runway alert system. So I am the voice that the pilots hear when they are leaving the airport or coming into the airport. It's an automatic system, and my voice gives the pilots the altitude and whether they're to left or to right, because of course the international language for commercial flight is English. So I recorded all those things, and many of the pilots call that voice Bitching Betty. So I am Bitching Betty, but I'm actually called the warning voice for the Honeywell Corporation. And this, has been in use for, 10 or so years. And I am told by friends at Honeywell that it has saved lives. Yeah. So I am so glad that I'm doing something good.
And so now when we get on an airplane, I say, hey, if we crash, it's your fault.
And it will be.
But we wanted to send out a larger message because we know that a lot of people have anxiety about flying in airplanes. And so we just want to let you know that if you're anxious about flying, just know that GLaDOS is flying the airplane. And there will be no cake. So, but so I finally got her into it, and right about that time, I got an audition to play all of the citizens in Half-Life 2, and they also had me do the voice of Odessa Cubbage, if you remember, if you guys have played that game, and I was doing that, and I was recording for them, and then they hired Ellen to play to be the voice of the Overwatch in Half-Life 2.
And I didn't even know what a video game was.
Right.
So I was there recording all this stuff, and I wasn't really sure what I was recording at all
particularly because the Overwatch says some stuff like "Citizen, you are malignant" and stuff like that, which didn't make any sense to you.
No, but I followed direction and I did what they wanted, but I really didn't understand.
Right.
What it was.
And so we did that gig, and then they hired me to be the voice of the sniper in Team Fortress 2. Woo! Right on, Mike. Wankers. Okay.
and I was hired as the administrator.
Right. And at this point, Valve still had no idea that we were married to each other. Until one day, Ellen had a session right before my session, and Ellen went in her very friendly way and said,
"Oh, you're gonna be working with my husband next." Well, who's that? I said, "Well, John Patrick Lowrie is my husband."
And so it kind of didn't mean anything to them at the time. It was just kind of an oddity. But after a while, they started thinking it was funny.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Is everyone alive? Because then they hired Ellen to be the voice of GLaDOS in Portal, and all this came out on the Orange Box. And it started when Portal got to be so famous. It started getting around on the internet that we were married to each other, and then the Valve guys thought that was hilarious. So they hired us to play the bickering married couple at the end of Left 4 Dead.
On the houseboat radio.
Right. So as you getting close to the river, you try to find a way out of town, and I'm on the houseboat radio saying, "Hey, we have a boat, we can pick people up," and she's in the
No, there's zombies there. No, don't go pick them up.
That's right. So once again, Ellen was in favor of death and leaving people to die.
As always.
Thank you. Is this a better microphone? Cool. Okay. Does this sound better?
Yeah. You look better.
Good. Anything helps these days. So yeah, so you know, we've been working for Valve, and then they hired us both to be characters in Dota 2, and that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, he does 7.
I'm Earthshaker, Doom, Darkseer, Storm Spirit, Pudge. Woo! Pudge, fresh meat.
And 2 others that he never can think of.
I can never think of all 7 of them at once.
And I'm Good Matter and Death Prophet.
Death Prophet, yeah.
And I like Death Prophet. We call Death Prophet Eurotrash. Because you can't really tell where she's from.
She has this kind of European accent.
Yes, I kind of move around the continent.
That's right. And I get to announce the international for Dota 2 every year in Seattle, and that's a lot of fun.
Yes, and the cool thing is they're always so nice, and they give us a couple of passes. And last year I went every day because I did not understand that game at all. But I went every day last year, and I can follow it now. I can follow the gameplay. So I'll be showing up this year a little bit too. I just like to watch the game. It's it's fascinating.
And do you guys do eSports here? Have you guys ever been to an eSport event? Some of you, yeah. I mean, the international is in the old basketball stadium in Seattle, and it fits 50,000 people, and it's just wonderful. I mean, the energy there, and people just go nuts when I announce the teams and all this kind of stuff, and they have 4 great big TV screens.
Right, and they set up as each team chooses their avatars, you know, for the players. They have what are those things like Princess Leia who shows up? Holograms, life-size holograms. I have to ask him stuff sometimes. Show up for each character that's chosen. And these are holograms that the controllers can make move and do things, and it's pretty really cool.
So if you guys get to Seattle, you should go see the international. It's a big event. But listen, this is a Q&A, and we haven't let you ask a single Q yet or given a single A. So do you guys have any questions? We have people out here with microphones. Anybody wants to ask us something really embarrassing? And
I just have to ask, are you even bothered by your own voice sometimes when you're doing like playback and you listen to yourself being recorded?
And am I bolted?
No, bothered.
Bothered. Oh, well, what my favorite thing to happen in a voice session is there have been several times where I've scared the crap out of the writers. They've written a line for me, and the way I say it just scares them, and I love that because they're hoping for the game to be scary if it's supposed to be scary, and that's great. But the other funny thing, I have a very good friend of mine who plays Half-Life 2, and he told me one time, I keep getting killed because I think that you're walking in the room. One of the citizens will say something, and he'll turn around and see me, and then he gets killed. So, of course, when you're first recording, and I don't know how many of you guys have recorded your own voices, but you notice that you don't sound the same to the microphone you do in your own head because the frequency response of your skull and your flesh is different than the frequency response of air, and you're hearing your own voice through your own yourself.
Apparatus.
Right. And so you always sound different to everyone else than you sound to yourself, and you have to kind of get used to that. And so if that answers your question. But I got used to that a long time ago. So yeah. Anybody else? Here's who has the microphone? Oh, great. Okay. You good to go? Yeah.
So there's a fake commercial on YouTube for the iPhone Siri where they have GLaDOS instead.
Yes. And I love that commercial.
Me too.
And actually, I have a young friend who works for AT&T down in San Francisco, and I told him, he agreed with me that they should have hired GLaDOS to do it. It would have been a lot more entertaining. But that I think it's called GLaDOS Siri or Siri GLaDOS. And it's still on the internet. You can still find it. I love that commercial.
My favorite line is, "You and your extra 20 pounds have dinner with your sister at 6:30. Yes.
So, during the Halloween event, especially when you have the owl head, how is it when you try to make that voice? You're basically going insane.
That was so. I mean, the writers at Valve are insane. You know, they come up with all these goofy ideas. Oh, an owl! Oh, an owl head! Yeah. You know, you never know what you're gonna. I did that, and then the next time they had me in, they had figured out a way for all the TF2 characters to do like a samba line or a mambo line, and they just played mambo music for like 20 minutes, and I just improv'd into the conga line. Yeah. And I was dancing, and I was going, "Look at my butt! It's an Aussie butt," and stuff like that. I was just saying, you know, whatever came into my head. So yeah, no, those guys are just wacko, and it's just a whole lot of fun working for them. Oh, yes?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm just wondering, how do you feel about the shipping between sniper and spy?
Well, you know, I mean, spy's a wanker. Well, yeah, but spy's a French wanker. You know what I mean? I mean, he's a frog-eating wanker. What can you do? He's a total fruit shop owner. Yeah, my friend Dennis Bateman. And Dennis and I are great friends, and we work together all the time. He's the voice of the spy. And Gary Schwartz, another friend
He's
of ours.
old too.
Yeah.
He's as old as we are.
And Gary Schwartz is the voice of the heavy weapons guy, and he's a very nice guy too. So we know a lot of these guys. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Ellen, I want to know your favorite GLaDOS line.
Oh yes. No. This is easy. This is killing you and giving you good advice aren't mutually exclusive. I think that's such a good statement. I mean, it is so true. I love to give advice. Me, Ellen, I love to give advice. And John says that I give it in two different ways.
That's true. Ellen can always say things to you in two different ways. She can say things like, "Oh, you ought to shop at IKEA," or she could say, "You ought to shop at IKEA."
And the second way, you better listen to
That's
me.
right. If the forehead gets involved, then you know you're in trouble.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my question was, what's the most difficult character for you to make the voice of, and why?
Well, for me, it was Broodmother, and luckily in the same session I did Death Prophet, and then I did Broodmother. But Broodmother is, you know, I tried different things, and they, you know, I had done an audition for it, but they wanted it to sound less human.
My little spiderling, and all of that sound I'm making is very rough on my vocal cords, because the air is scraping across my cords and I have a lateral lisp.
Well, one of the most interesting things the challenges that I had, I went in to do 4 voices for Dota 2, and I just had a really bad cold. And I had a low voice, and I had a really high voice, but I didn't have anything in the middle. It was just gone. And so I did Earthshaker, which, there are many Earths, but there is only one Earthshaker. And I did Doom, and you know, all these guys that are very low. And we did 3 characters, and then we had Storm Spirit. And we needed to find a different voice for Storm Spirit, and so I just came up with the one voice that I had left, which was Storm Spirit. I want only blue tangos in my dressing room. And so Storm Spirit suddenly became this, you know, English thespian guy, you know. And but that was because that was the voice that I had left. So sometimes you just work with what you got. Where are we? Where's the microphone?
Here we are.
Cool. Yes.
Hello there.
Hello there.
A question for both of you. If you were in a dream world, say, what would you have wished that you had had the voice actor for? Like something that's made already that you wished you were the voice for?
Okay.
Well, Siri, damn it.
I wish I was the voice of Donald Trump, because I just say different things.
Actually, I think John would be a very good president.
Yeah. Oh, God,
Because
don't
he
vote for me.
listens to other people.
Oh, yeah, which is different than Donald Trump, yeah. So, yeah, there are a lot of differences between me and old Donald. But to answer your question, I really get the most excited when I'm doing things that haven't been done before. I mean, I have, some of my heroes, Sterling Holloway, I'm blanking something, Mel Blanc, they've done, wonderful work, but I would not want to have the unenviable job of trying to imitate Mel Blanc's Bugs Bunny, say, because it's not going to be exactly the same. It's always going to be a little bit different, and that bothers me when somebody else does that. I don't like the second voice. I like the original voice. So the fun stuff that Ellen and I have gotten to do has been that we are creating characters from the ground up. So that to me is always what I like. I love working on new plays that playwrights are still working on. They haven't finished, and so creating that new work is what I enjoy the most. But I would be the voice of Donald Trump.
When we get back to Seattle, John's going to do a workshop of a new musical. So we do like that kind of thing. And Seattle is a very creative place.
Yeah,
and
there's
lots of shows start in Seattle.
And lots of new games, yeah. Does that answer your question? Cool. Yes?
Yes, I have to ask. Is sniping a good job, mate?
Sniping's a good job, mate. I mean, you're out of doors. I'll tell you one thing, you never go hungry. As long as there are 2 people left on the planet, someone is going to want someone dead. Yes?
When you, voice a new character, do you take a lot of creative liberties, like change a line or say something differently from what the writers intended?
Well, there are two kind of things that you do in games, and a lot of times the lines need to be the way they're written because they're fitting into something else, and you as the actor don't know what that is. You're just getting a series of lines. But then there are always times when you'll get to a place and this kind of activity is going on, and so they'll give you more liberty to just come up with stuff.
Yeah, so during Portal 2, there was lots of opportunity for Stephen Merchant and J.K. Simmons to improvise. And Kay Johnson's lemon speech, that whole lemon thing, J.K. Simmons just came up with it.
Made it up.
And of course, Stephen Merchant, is a trained improviser. I didn't improvise much at all.
Except for the turret opera, which you totally made up.
Yes, I made that up. I made up the words for that.
Yeah, I mean, she went into the studio and they said, "Oh, by the way, could you improvise some Italian?"
No, Mike Moraski didn't even say Italian. Could you make up some words for this? And he explained to me that this was, saying goodbye to the player, and I thought, well, addio, because I speak bad Italian.
Yeah.
Not that Italian is bad, but the way I speak it, it's bad. And so I made up words for it, and
so sometimes you have that opportunity to improvise.
And there are a few places as GLaDOS where they had me improvise, but I don't improvise the way Stephen Merchant improvises.
But like with the sniper, I would be riffing, and I always tend to riff. They give you a bunch of lines, and you say those lines because they need those lines. And then, if something else occurs to you, you just keep talking. And a lot of times what will happen is I'll say something, and oh, that's great, now say this. And, it'll lead them in a new direction. So it is kind of a working relationship between you and the writers. Oh, where is the microphone now? Okay, great.
Hi, me again.
Yes.
I want to know, if you have played Team Fortress 2, what do you mean, both of you, and you cannot say sniper? Well, and what's wrong with fruit shop owners?
What's wrong with fruit shop owners? Well, for one, they own fruit shops. I mean, what do you want me to say?
I think there are oranges involved.
Yeah, I hate oranges. They're good for you. So I'm not sure I heard the whole question, though. When we play TF2.
No, John started to play, but tell them how you first started to play and your big mistake.
My big mistake? Oh, right, yeah. My Steam name is my name. And so I just got really shy about, oh man, if they know that, John Patrick Lowry's playing the sniper, they're just going to kill me right off. And they did. So, but TF2, I mean, I've tried to play it and I've taken a couple of the classes, but I get into the game and it just moves so fast. So I think my Twitch response is too old for that game. I love it. I love watching other people play it, and it's really hilarious, and I love listening to it.
Yeah, and I watched John play, but I tried to play like the first level of Portal. I couldn't even get out of the first room.
But I'm good at Portal and Portal 2 and Half-Life 2. Yeah, where are we? Back there? Huh?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you use any kind of routine to get into character, or do you just go in and do it?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, several years ago, Bill Van Buren, who was the producer for lots of Valve games, but also Portal and Portal 2, he made some raw samples for me, which is my recorded voice doing my GLaDOS voice, but before the processing. So every time I have to do GLaDOS, and even for the Pacific Rim, because although for Pacific Rim they processed my voice differently, the read I gave them in the studio was GLaDOS, because that's what they wanted. So I've got these sound samples on my phone, and every time I have to do her, I listen. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Because you're doing so many other things as an actor, so many different characters, and time goes by that, you sort of lose the feeling of what the voice feels like to you, so you have to listen to it again.
Right. Well, and that's for recreating a voice, but for just going in and creating a character, the one thing that I always keep in mind is that the guys who make these games really love the games, and they want the games to be as realistic as possible. And so it is my job that if I'm getting eaten by a space spider, I'm really getting eaten by a space spider, and that's I think what keeps them coming back for more. They keep hiring me because both of us, I mean, we really commit to the reality of the situation, no matter how, and when you get into particularly science fiction games and fantasy games, you can get into some very bizarre situations, but you have to find a way to be a human being in those things. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I just have a question. If a game developer starts to, he wants to make a sequel, right? Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't choose you, do you feel betrayed then? That they didn't take you as a voice actor?
Well, we've never been in the situation. Well, I mean, when they did Portal 2, they did use Ellen. So we've never been in a situation where a character that we voiced, then they went with a different actor to voice it again. But I would imagine...
Now that does happen,
yeah,
and we've talked to other actors who that's happened to, and they're philosophical about it, but that's never happened to us.
But a bigger problem in the industry is that, and this is something that we're negotiating now, is that companies will bring out a sequel and they will not tell the actor that they're hiring them to do the same character, and so the actor doesn't have a chance to negotiate, okay, well, if I'm going to do this character again, I want more money than you gave me last time. They don't find out until they've already signed the contract that they're doing the same character they've done before. And so that's something that we're negotiating.
But that's never happened to us with Valve.
Right,
I mean, Valve always, you're going to do this, and
right.
we know about it.
Seattle is a little bit more civilized place than Los Angeles. Yeah.
It is.
So where are we? Over there? Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a question for Ellen. Most of us know you as a voice actor, but I remember a small show called Wish It Inc.
Yes.
And I would like to know, how did you land that role and how was that acting experience?
Well, the two young men who put that together, Ryan Martin, and now I'm blanking on, it'll come to me in a second, but actually the writer of the show who also plays the head fairy, is the writer of that show, and they knew me through Portal. So they contacted me because they knew me as GLaDOS, and they thought it would be funny if I played the fairy godmother. And boy, did I have fun. I had such a good time. And you know, they're still hoping to do a second season. And if we ever get that second season,
They want me to be the
made,
fairy godfather.
my ex-husband.
That's right. The fairy godmother and the fairy godfather had a really bad divorce,
Yes.
like 600 years ago, and they're still mad about it.
But it's a very funny show, and I loved doing that. And what they did, all the other actors were based in LA, and they had shot everything around me. And I flew down to LA, and I was there for 5 days, constantly shooting. We did every single scene for the whole season that I was in over 5 days. So it was me.
Compressed, but a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad you saw it.
Look it up on YouTube. Wish It Ink.
Wish
It's a
It
fun,
Ink.
fun series.
Oh, and the other thing I like, the other video that I like people to see is my video for NASA.
That's right. They hired GLaDOS to do an educational video, fission versus fusion.
Yes, and I explain to these very stupid techies the difference between fission and fusion.
And the techies keep you from taking over the world.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they turn me into just someone who provides music.
That's right. That's right.
So, but it's great, and it's called that. It's from NASA, fission versus fusion.
Yeah.
So, and it's very funny.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes, chicken.
Yes. I would like to ask a question that could go for both of you, and that would be, what would you say is the defining moment that you had that led you down this trail, like in your career, I mean?
Well, it was John saying, "Damn it, get a voice demo."
Yeah, I mean, we actually started. Ellen and I both were disc jockeys. We, radio speakers for an NPR station that in America that's
National Public Radio.
National Public Radio, and we would play classical music and then do the news and stuff like that. And this is when I was still in college, working on my composition degree. And we did some. They had us do some commercials for some radio shows, and that was the first voice work that we did. And when we went out to Seattle, I just needed money. And so we were being theater actors. We've gotten jobs in theaters and doing professional theater.
And opera.
Yeah. Well, you were doing opera. I wasn't. But when you're an actor, you're just scrambling always. You're just trying to make a living. And so I put the voice demo together. And like I said, for 5 years, there weren't any video games to do. So I was doing that kind of work. And then I just started auditioning and started getting the gigs. So that's how it worked for me. Yes.
Yes, hi. So we know you played Portal and Team Fortress, but do you have any other games you like to play? Do you have any favorites?
Oh, Elder Scrolls.
Well, I've been playing a lot of Elder Scrolls online lately. Yeah, and I have a couple of characters on there. If you want, Ferris Calendaric and Elke, daughter of Ingi, are two of my characters on Elder Scrolls. If you find me there. And if you want to friend me, I think my name on that is Milo Minderbinder, which is a character from Catch 22.
Yeah, he realized that he should not use John Patrick.
That's right. I just get too shy. So yeah, but I really like Half-Life 2. I've played that lots of times, and of course I played the Portal games. My first love in video games was when Myst came out. I was a great big Myst player, and then I loved Riven, and I loved all the Myst games that came after that. And the thing I love about Elder Scrolls is I think of it as kind of like Myst on steroids. So lots of magical things, and I love the way they have the doors that kind of get the steampunk part of it in there and stuff like that. So, but I'm on a Mac, so there are a lot of games that I can't play because I'm on a Mac. Yes, sir.
Hello again.
Hello again. Great hat.
Thank you. For both of you, what is your favorite insult?
You bloody voice actor. My favorite insult, like as our characters, or just when I'm insulting people in life? In character. No, I gotta say, I love the bullets come out of the slim end, mate. That's my favorite insult. Now, of course, GLaDOS insults a lot of people too.
I know, but I don't. People have to remind me of them.
Oh, I think my favorite insult of yours is, "Oh, you're a horrible person." It says it right here. We weren't even testing for that, but.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. I'll take that one.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned doing a lot of different types of acting, but I'm still kind of curious about this. When you play a lot of video games or watch cartoons, most of the cast is voice actors. Most of the cast is people who are used to doing voices. But when you watch a lot of the movies coming out of Hollywood, most of the voice cast is comprised of Hollywood actors, like flesh and blood actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wondered, like, if that impacts, like, I'm sure part of it is marketability, but I've always wondered if it impacts the movie in a different way, to have people who are used to doing voices versus having a lot of people that are used to more, shall we say, conventional type of acting.
Right. Well, I think that, there are some parts of voice acting that are particular to voice acting. Since you were called on to do things that don't have anything to do with your body, and you don't have a set around you, you don't have other actors, all you have is a microphone. So there is a process of getting into it and putting yourself in the scene without any help. But most of the voice actors that I know are great actors. And they do great on camera.
So, Johnny, that movie we just saw, was it Despicable Me 3? Was it Despicable Me 3?
Well, we saw it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Julie Andrews is in it. And so we saw her name at the beginning in the group with Julie Andrews, my idol. And we watched the whole movie. And it's like, well, where was Julie Andrews? You know, this is a cartoon, so just voices. And we realized at the end that she's played Gru's mother.
With the Eurotrash accent?
With the Eurotrash accent. And she was wonderful and so funny, and we didn't recognize her voice. So I was very impressed by that.
But if you watch, did you guys watch Archer? The cartoon Archer? And then if you go Arrested Development, have you seen that show? So, a lot of the actors that are in Archer are on camera in Arrested Development.
Well, and Bob's Burgers. The same H. John Benjamin, is that his name?
Right.
Is Archer and is Bob of Bob's Burgers.
But those are both cartoons, and he's talking about voice acting versus acting. So when you do one, you can do the other, and there are more and more film actors are getting into voice acting too. Where are we now? Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
When you're going to record, do you ever get to see the footage? Say if you're going to make a really strong emotional scene, do you get to see the footage to see the character's reaction to the event, so you know how to act with your voice?
So how it works these days is, back in the old days you'd have to do that because they were animating. But I was actually, when I made No One Lives Forever, they had just perfected the software that made the jaw move, that they would record my voice, feed it into the computer, and the computer would make the jaw of my character move, but it was just the jaw, so I was just like that. And when I made No One Lives Forever 2, they perfected the software for the lips and the tongue. So at this point, we don't have to match the animation. They get a recording from us.
But she's talking about emotional moments, like, if there's a big explosion or if somebody's in love.
And they just direct us and we do it.
Yeah.
And they match the animation.
Actually, we always get to see what the character looks like. They'll always show us, a visualization of the character. But I was doing a dub for a Korean game, and I can't remember the Korean game's name, nor what it was going to be called in English. but they actually did show me footage of moments in the game because I had to fit in the feeling of what was happening. And they played the recording of the Korean actress who did the original voice so that I could have that same quality.
All right, but that's dubbing. That's not doing the original.
But I didn't have to match mouth. I did have to get in the right time, very specifically. They were very specific about time, but I didn't have to match lip movement.
But even when I was doing Meet the Sniper, say, they showed me some animation, but after they recorded me, they completely changed the animation because they matched the animation to my performance. That's the way that works. Where are we now? Oh, great. Huh?
Hi, I would like to know what's your favorite musical parts you've done?
Well, I have a few, but I love Susanna in The Marriage of Figaro and Mimi in La Boheme, Jeanette in The Full Monty.
You had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, and probably, I don't know, those Susanna and Mimi are probably my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. I've gotten to do a lot of new shows. I got to play Joseph Pulitzer of Pulitzer Prize, and that was a great character to play. I just got to do Alfie Doolittle in My Fair Lady.
Yes, we were both in that. That was great fun.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, there's so many characters. I mean, one of my favorite theatrical experiences, I got to do a play by Sir Alan Ayckbourn, where I played a composer, and I also composed all the music that the composer composes in the play.
And this was back in the early 90s.
Right.
And then just a couple of years ago,
I got to actually work with Alan Ayckbourn, and he directed
he came to Seattle to do a recent show called Sugar Daddies.
Yeah, but neither of those were musicals, although in the one I did compose music, and and it was great because this guy used stuff that he recorded in his house to make music out of. And so at one time a girl comes over and we have sex, and I record that, and then I turn it into music. I turn her orgasm sounds into music, and I say, "Hey, listen to this music I found." And she went, "What, are you crazy?" And she just walks out. And so it was a very, very funny play. Yes. Hello.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how would one go about making a voice demo, and could you incorporate the sound of a giant space spider in your answer?
Okay.
Well,
the sound of the giant space spider, or the sound of being eaten by a giant space spider? Being eaten.
Now,
okay.
a voice demo needs to be a recording of your different voices that's about a minute. That's all the time you need, about a minute. There are certainly places in Seattle where you can go have it done professionally, which I recommend, and you get little samplings of space spider deaths. So John will give you a little sampling because he can die for several minutes.
But here, what I would do is I would Google talent agencies in Stockholm, because Stockholm is big enough that they're going to have those, and email them and say you're interested in getting a voice demo because you want to do some voice acting work. Do you have any recommendations where I can get a voice demo made? Because the agencies will send their talent to places to get voice demos made, and you want it to be professional. And when you go there, if you don't have anything, I mean, if you have anything on YouTube or commercials or anything like that, then they'll incorporate those into your voice demo. If you don't, then they'll write material for you, and they'll put music pads under it so that it'll sound like you have done stuff. And so that's basically the process. You go there, and they may want you to give you lessons if they think you need some, but if they think you're ready, then they'll go ahead. Because making a voice demo is probably going to cost you 5,000 to 6,000 krona, somewhere in that area.
I mean, we know how much it costs in Seattle. Right. I would have no idea how much it would cost.
But it's probably going to be somewhere around there. But if you were going to die by being eaten by a space spider, I mean, you have to decide as an actor, how does the space spider eat you? Does it start with little nips and then bigger bites?
Starts with your toes. That's where it starts.
Are you making my choices for me now? You see
Yeah,
this way?
I'm directing you.
All right. So,
It's starting with your toes.
so if you're being eaten by a space spider, it might be.
Those toes getting eaten.
See, the annoying thing about space spiders is they always use dip. You know, they take a piece of you and then they use the dip and then they eat it. It's like, come on, man, I'm right here. Yes.
I have a question for Ellen. How do you... Well, how did... I'm just now. Was Wheatley really designed to be a moron?
Well, you know, I've always wanted to meet Stephen Merchant because I want to say to his face, you moron. But, you know, I was, you know, in the hotel room. I just saw a movie with Stephen Merchant. No, it was on the airplane. It's called Table 19. And Stephen Merchant is in this. It's just a little small movie, and it was on the airplane because it didn't do very well in the cinemas. And he plays this wonderful character, and I watched the movie because I saw that he was in it. And he is so clever and so wonderful. So I hope I get to meet him at some point, and I will tell him that he's a moron. I will definitely tell him that.
Yes.
Hi. I have two questions. What is your favorite character to voice act that you have done? And what is your tips and tricks for people that want to start voice acting? It can be how to train your voice. Do you have any tips for that? Or do you have any tips to how to like work in the voice acting business and stuff like that?
Cool. Well, I mean...
Well, the first thing I tell people is get in an acting class. You want to get in an acting class because actually, in my opinion, the best voice actors have theater training because that's how you learn how to act.
Yeah, and even doing plays, you know, even in community theaters, you know, local non-professional theaters, that can help. But really, studying acting, there really are tools. I mean, it's not just making things up. The process of figuring out why you're saying what you're saying. This is why when we were judging the cosplay last night, you know, it's like one of the biggest challenges that those guys had was to fit their performance into a pre-recorded performance. And what an actor is always trying to do is be in the moment and deciding why they're doing something as they're doing it.
To create afresh.
Right.
Even when you're doing a long run of a show, night after night after night, the same show over and over and over again, you want it to all feel new. All be fresh.
Yeah, and when you want the audience to not be able to tell that you're acting. You want the audience to think, oh, this person is actually doing this, and so that's always the job.
And
of the
we
actor.
say, you know, that is commitment to the moment and to the reality of the play and the character.
I call it starting from zero. You know, the first question you ask is, why would I say anything at all? Why wouldn't I just sit here and, you know, not say anything? And then, now that I've decided why I'm talking, why would I say this particular thing? And it turns out there are all kinds of reasons that we talk, and most of them have to do with establishing status. Most of the things we say, right now, I am making myself important by talking to you guys, you know. Now, I might also be imparting information, which I want to do because I think you guys are great, and I want you guys to voice act if you want to, but it makes me feel good that I'm up here holding a microphone. And that kind of power relationship, you want to look for those power relationships when you're acting. Who has the power? Who's trying to get the power? And stuff like that. And so
You know, there are a lot of scenes written between families, you know, between a father and a son. And it's very, you know, one would think that the father has the most power, and then sometimes you see that power shift to the son. Very interesting things, but that's what John means about a power relationship.
Yeah.
Who is in control?
right. And as far as my favorite person to voice act, I mean, I just have a very soft spot in my heart for the sniper because I've gotten to do so much of him. And the fact that he, you know, shoots someone and then insults them and then takes his hat off to show a little respect, you know, is wonderfully just totally weird. So I like him a lot.
Oh, I thought you were going to answer the favorite one.
I can't remember what the question was.
What was your favorite character to voice act?
Oh, well, hell, GLaDOS.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah. Another question quite related to this. If there was a game or something like that, a series you want to voice act or something that's gonna make a sequel, and you think of directly that I want in on this one that you haven't done before, but you want in on the sequel and.
That's not the way it works. If somebody's making a sequel, they don't tell anybody about it, particularly not actors.
We're the last to know anything.
Right. They'll send an audition out, and they won't even tell you that it's a sequel, even if you've been in the first one. Now, like you say, with Valve, they're very nice. They know us. We have a great relationship. But if Bungie was going to make another Halo game, they'll send an audition out, and
then there are always non-disclosure agreements.
Right, but I wouldn't know that the game existed until they sent the audition out, because they're very, very closed-mouthed about it.
And we have auditioned for things that even though we don't get the work, we're not allowed to talk about it.
Right. Does that answer your question?
Not quite. It was just like, if in a dream scenario, if you were able to decide yourself, like.
I was able to decide.
That never happens.
Right. Well, in my dreams, if I was to decide, I would have a part that only had one word, and they paid me like billions of dollars. That's my dream scenario. No, I like doing new things, and when we got the chance to do The Church in the Darkness, which is our new video game coming out next year. To create these two cult leaders from the ground up, that was a great to actually be involved in the creation of the characters.
Yeah, because we had discussions with Richard Rouse
with the writer,
about who our characters were, and then John and I, between the two of us, we talked about the dynamics between this married couple, Rebecca and Isaac. So
it's that for us it's more the process, you know, than how much creativity we can put into it, rather than I'd love to voice Batman, say, or something like that.
I think I'd be terrible as Batman.
You'd be the perfect first female Batman.
You're my friend.
So where's the microphone now? Oh, great.
Yes, this is a question for either of you.
Okay.
What's the most high-profile job that you have turned down?
High-profile job that we've turned down. We're actors.
I never turned
we don't turn down jobs.
I remember a job offer that we got once. It was so weird. We were supposed to go to a party. Do you all know the book Jane Eyre? A British author, now I'm spacing on the author, but it's about a little girl who goes to this horrible...
It was one of the Brontes.
Yes, one of the Brontes. And she's an orphan, and she's at this horrible school, and it's run by a headmaster and a headmistress. And we were actually asked to appear at a birthday party as these two horrible people, and we were told that what they wanted us to do was to treat all the guests at the party as if they were our students and we were to abuse them. We turned down that job.
But it wasn't particularly high profile. So where's... Yes, huh?
So this is a question for mostly you, John, but Ellen, do you remember what GLaDOS stands for? And I'd like to just...
John remembers what GLaDOS stands for.
Do you actually remember what GLaDOS stands for, John?
Genetic Life Form and Digital Operating System. You mean Gamla nerd? Yes.
If the cake wasn't in fact a lie, what would be your favorite cake?
My favorite cake is French
Red velvet cake.
velvet cake
with butter frosting.
Yes,
with butter,
red velvet
icing.
cake with buttercream icing.
That was the cake we
actually
had.
our wedding cake.
That's right.
Yeah. But a red velvet cake is it's like a chocolate cake, but you put red food coloring in it too, so it's chocolate that looks red. I mean, it's kind of weird looking, but it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes good. Yeah. So there you have it. Where are we now? Yes.
Yeah. Hello. How much body language is involved in the voice acting?
That's a very good question. One has to be very careful about body language because you don't want to change your distance from the microphone. So if I'm doing the administrator and she's very upset with you, I still have to stay right like this. But there are opportunities where I'm doing things with my arms, etc., but my mouth has to stay the same distance from the microphone.
So I'm the sniper and I'm in a conga line. And I need to be improvising into the microphone. So I have to keep my head in the same place, but I'm dancing and I'm doing all this weird stuff. So that's what you have to do, because you have to keep your voice right there on the microphone.
Now you can see why I love this man.
So we have about 5 minutes left. Okay, right here.
I believe this has to be asked. Maybe you've been asked this many times before, but is Half-Life 3 coming out?
I knew you were going to ask that. I was about to say, does this have something to do with the number 3?
So there's actually a very sad story, and if we could just have a moment of silence, because Gabe Newell, the founder of Valve, was attacked by the number 3 when he was 3, and so if you bring up the number 3 to him, he goes into a fetal position and doesn't say anything for days. So yeah, sorry to relate that. It's a very sad story, but no, if there is, they may be working on it as we speak. But once again, we would be the last to know. And if we were working on it, we couldn't tell you. So there you go.
So you can't tell if we're telling the truth or just lying.
That's right. That's right. But she is GLaDOS, so take that into consideration. Where are we now? Yes.
Hi.
You had to wait so long that it just went out of your brain.
Yeah, kind of. But as the administrator, do you like being, the bitchy voice of TF2 and annoying?
Yes. So I call her the skinny old bitch. And Jay Pinkerton and Sheila, who's also writing for Team Fortress 2 now, they know that's what I call her. She's the skinny old bitch. And I love playing her. It's such an emotional release, and I can be just as pissy as I want to be. And I don't know if you know what that word means, but it's
right.
I'm angry.
So often she has to be nice, like to me and stuff, and it's really annoying to her.
I get so tired of that.
I also have another one. Are you salty about Wheatley making his way into TF2 and GLaDOS didn't?
She's saying that Wheatley made it into TF2. Is he in the game now?
Yeah, he's a sapper that the spy can use.
Wow. Well,
I'm very happy to hear that. I wish Wheatley well. I wish him well. I do.
Because he didn't seem to be happy floating around in space.
No.
Anyone else? Where are we? I don't see a waving hand. Oh, okay, great.
So,
yes.
you mentioned finding yourself in very bizarre scenarios coming to the studio.
Right.
What would be the scenario that you feel is the most bizarre that you've been in?
A character I played in, I believe it was Infamous or Fear 2 Project Origin, might have been Fear 2, I think it was Fear 2 Project Origin, where I played a very kind of a Gene Hackman, ex-Marine, mercenary guy, very, military, gung-ho kind of guy. And the game takes place in a governmental research facility where they've developed a nerve gas that makes you hallucinate. And at a certain point in the game, he hallucinates this beautiful woman that he falls in love with. and she doesn't really exist. And so he turns from this total gung-ho guy to this guy who's just totally head over heels in love with this hallucination. And that was a really cool thing to have to play. Cool. How are we doing? We have one more? So we have to go to the microphone, yeah. Yes. Yes, there you are. Okay, cool.
Hi, I'm the door hinge guy.
Yes, the door hinge, okay.
I have a question for Ellen. Are you familiar with the YouTube channel Harry 101 UK?
Oh, I love him. Oh my God, John and I love him. Oh, all his stuff. He is an incredible creative craftsman.
Yeah.
And we love all the little videos that he's made.
Well, and he did
to our song, GLaDOS song.
Right, he did such a nice job with GLaDOS song, and
having GLaDOS sing, and it's just we always check out what he's doing, always.
Yeah. So, do we have one more? Or are we? Oh, they're way in the back. Great.
Hello there. Hi. So I'm relatively involved in the source filmmaker creative community. Is there any? Has there been any point where somebody's reached out to you and asked for your cooperation in terms of voice acting for like a fan project or something like that?
A few of them, yeah. I mean, we are constrained in what we can do because we are members of the union, and so we have to ask a certain amount of money to do that work. And of course, I know you guys may remember when a guy in England, Gary, what's his name?
Gary Hudson.
Gary Hudson.
And Stephanie.
Yeah, wanted to propose to his girlfriend with a level of Portal that he made up, and he wrote to Ellen and said, could you do the voice for it? And Ellen talked to the guys at Valve, and they were still recording GLaDOS, so they brought her in, and they did that work.
Yeah, at the end of a session.
Right, at Valve.
But John and I have done a lot of interviews for different podcasts. Mm-hmm. And we'll interview with someone, and then they'll want us to do a shout out that's used, as a bumper for the program, it
always depends on the project, but yeah, I mean, we like to help out whenever we can, and if it's something that we feel we can do for free, then we'll do that. But if it's something that requires money, then it has to go through a union contract. Okay? Thanks. And I think we're probably out of time, right? All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you for being here. So nice to speak with everyone.
And I'm going to be leading a writing workshop down at Blåhavet stage at 2:30. Okay, see ya.
And then we have a signing after that.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all.
A big thank you to John and Ellen for letting me upload this to my YouTube channel. If you want to see another Q&A that's in Swedish, click the Montefianton Q&A button to the left, or check out my really cool Improv cosplay showcase to the right. This is the piece of art that I worked with a lot for this convention. See you later, and don't forget to say hi on Twitch.